Imagine the United States in 1929, the world's industrial titan, a roaring engine of production. It churned out 42% of global manufacturing, 52 million tons of steel, 4.5 million cars, 70% of the planet's oil, leaving Britain and Germany in the dust. With a GDP of $103 billion, it was the biggest economy, running a tidy trade surplus of $0.84 billion, shipping machinery and wheat to a post-war Europe still rebuilding. The U.S. wasn't just strong, it was the undisputed king of production, a golden age of factory might. But trouble brewed beneath the shine. Farmers drowned in overproduction. Wheat prices sagged from $1.30 a bushel in 1920 to $1.04 in 1929, and the stock market crash of October 1929 rattled the nation. Unemployment crept up to 8.7% by 1930, and GDP shrank 8.5%. Into this fragile moment stepped Smoot-Hawley, signed June 17, 1930. It wasn't a surgical strike, it was a sledgehammer, raising tariffs on 20,000 goods, pushing duties from 40% to nearly 60%. The goal? Shield farmers and factories from imports. The reality? A catastrophe. Why? The U.S. didn't need a wall. It was already winning. Imports weren't flooding in. The trade surplus proved it. But Smoot-Hawley jacked up prices, sugar doubled, groceries stung, and sparked a trade war. Canada hit U.S. eggs and machines. France slammed American autos. Exports cratered from $5.24 billion in 1929 to $1.65 billion in 1933, a 68% plunge. Farmers, already on their knees, watched wheat drop to 38 cents a bushel. Global trade collapsed 66% by 1934, and U.S. unemployment soared to 24.9% by 1933. The Depression deepened, costing $30 billion in lost GDP in 1930s dollars, per Douglas Irwin. Smoot-Hawley took a production giant, locked its markets, and starved it when resilience was vital. It was like bolting the doors during a feast, senseless and ruinous. Fast forward to 2025. The U.S. is no longer the king of production. China is. Back in 1929, America ruled the factory floor. Now China pumps out 30% of global manufacturing, about $5 trillion, to the U.S.'s 16%, which is roughly $2.5 trillion. Steel? China's 1.01 billion tons dwarf the U.S.'s 86 million. Consumer goods? China's electronics and textiles flood the world. The U.S. still shines in high-tech, planes, chips, drugs, and its $28 trillion GDP towers over China's $19 trillion, but in raw volume it's been lapped by far since China surged ahead in 2010. Trade tells the story, a $1.2 trillion deficit in 2024, with China alone raking in the profits in $375 billion more than it sends. Enter Trump's reciprocal tariffs, announced April 2nd, 2025. Unlike Smoot-Hawley's clumsy blanket, these are a two-pronged jab. A 10% universal tariff on all imports and tailored reciprocal rates. 54% on China, 20% on the EU, 25% on Canada and Mexico, mirroring their barriers against U.S. goods. Average hit, 22.7% according to Fortune. The U.S. economy isn't crumbling. 2.5% GDP growth, 4.1% unemployment, 3% inflation. It's a challenger with muscle, not a giant in despair. Why might this work? The U.S. isn't defending a throne, it's reclaiming ground. Smoot-Hawley squandered a surplus. Trump targets a deficit. These tariffs aren't just walls, they're leverage. China sends $500 billion in goods to the U.S. America's consumer market is a prize others can't lose. Trump's betting countries will blink, cut their tariffs or subsidies, e.g., China's 25% auto duties, to dodge the pain. Early signs: Mexico's talking border fixes. Domestically, steel firms like Nucor could boom as in 2018, and $10 billion in factory pledges hint at a manufacturing lift. If deals stick, say a revamped USMCA, exports might rise without a 1930s-style crash. Here's the thread tying it together. Production status flipped the script. In 1929, the U.S. was the leading producer. Tariffs choked a winner, slashing exports when markets mattered most. Today, it's not. China's the volume champ, and the U.S. has turf to gain. Smoot-Hawley hit when trade was 5% of GDP, a sideshow. Now it's 11% exports and 15% imports, a lifeline. Back then, retaliation gutted a surplus. Now the deficit means the U.S. imports more than it loses in a trade spat, giving it bargaining clout. Trump's not home free. Inflation could spike, costing families over $3,000 yearly. Retaliation's real. China's 34% tariff, EU threats, and a recession looms, 60% odds. Smoot-Hawley's ghost whispers caution. But the design's sharper, reciprocal, not random, a tool to rewrite rules, not just hoard scraps. Smoot-Hawley was gasoline on a 1930s fire. Trump's tariffs are a 2025 controlled burn, risky, but with a shot at clearing deadwood for growth. In 1929, the U.S., a production king, swung Smoot-Hawley like a drunk boxer, hitting itself hardest. In 2025, a former champ, outmuscled by China, throws Trump's tariffs like a cagey fighter, calculated using market heft to land punches. Smoot-Hawley was bad because it kneecapped a leader needlessly. Trump's might work because they arm a challenger with purpose. History says, watch out. Trump says, hold my beer. The ending's unwritten. Success hinges on execution and global grit. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. You can also support us on Patreon, link below.